This is the Discover One Plus, which is a newly refreshed version of Velotric's first generation city cruiser. This bike can now switch between class 1, 2, and 3 modes. It's a little lighter, and it also features an adjustable stem, so riders can tweak the fit to suit their personal preferences. Velotric also has an upgraded version of the bike called the Discover 2, which we recently reviewed. So why would you choose this model over that one? Let's take a ride and find out. Hey fellow e-bikers, I'm John, and I want to welcome you to Electric Bike Report, where we provide extremely in-depth reviews with real-world performance tests of every e-bike we get our hands on. So if you're in the market for an e-bike, please make sure you're subscribed to the channel and you have notifications turned on so you don't miss any new reviews when they get released a couple times every week. And please also remember that all of our testing takes a ton of time and effort, so if we're able to help steer you toward a bike, please use our affiliate link in the video description when you make a purchase. We earn commissions from sales, so using that link helps support us, but it won't increase the price of the bike. With that out of the way, let's get into the details of the Discover One Plus. To start off with some highlights, the first thing that stood out to me about this bike was its value. At the time of filming, it's priced between $1,000 and $1,500. Again, you can check current pricing with our affiliate link, but it packs in everything you really need, as well as a few useful extras. We'll get into specifics shortly, but generally speaking, this bike performed well, it looks good, and it was both approachable and pretty peppy at the same time. So this version of the bike uses a proprietary 500-watt rear hub motor with a cadence sensor, and the biggest benefit of that was that it was extremely easy to ride. The Discover has a throttle, but if you choose to pedal, you don't need to put in much legwork. So as long as the pedals are spinning, the motor stays on, and the bike has 5 different speed limits, so you can very easily control your speed by selecting the pedal assist setting that matches the speed you want to go. Finally, this bike was designed with comfort in mind, and I think it's clear that Velotric put a big priority on making the ride relaxing and enjoyable. I found the saddle and the ergonomic handlebars and the rubber grips to be very comfortable, but I also really liked the upright riding position that didn't put any strain on my back or my wrists. Moving on, let's run through the rest of the bike spec sheet before we get into our test results. So the motor I mentioned is powered by a 48-volt, 691 watt-hour battery in the down tube, which is removable. It has an IPX7 waterproof rating, and it is UL 2271 certified. There's a 7-speed Shimano Tourney drivetrain with a 46-tooth chainring and an 11 to 29-tooth cassette, and that's operated by a trigger-style shifter on the right handlebar. The bike is equipped with hydraulic disc brakes with 2-piston calipers and 180mm rotors. It has 26-inch wheels with 2.5-inch wide street tires, and it includes front and rear fenders, as well as a headlight and a tail light that functions as a brake light. There's a lockout suspension fork up front with 80mm of travel and preload adjustment. There's a custom saddle, and then up in the cockpit, there's a few things I already mentioned, like the adjustable stem. There's a set of cruiser-style handlebars that are 660mm wide, and there's a set of locking ergonomic rubber grips. There's a throttle lever on the left handlebar next to the bike's control panel, and then in the center is a black and white display that includes a speedometer, an odometer, a battery charge indicator, and other ride data, including your current pedal assist setting. A few final details to wrap things up. The Discover One Plus weighs 59 pounds, including its battery. It has an insane payload capacity of up to 440 pounds. The bike itself is UL 2849 certified, and it has an IPX6 water resistant rating. There's a single step-through frame with a standover height of about 15.5 inches, and it's available in 5 color options, including some standard options like Silver and Indigo Gray, but it's also available in some flashier colors like Mango, Forest, and this Cyan color. That should cover everything though, so let's move on and dive into our test sections so we can see how the Discover One stacks up against similar e-bikes we've reviewed. Starting things off is our brake test, where we determined the Discover One Plus's average stopping distance to be 23 feet and 5 inches. My fellow reviewer Griffin tested the bike by pedaling up to 20 miles per hour, applying the brakes at a predetermined line, and then measuring how far the bike traveled before stopping completely. He repeated this process 3 times, since every result is a little different, and we used all 3 sets of data to calculate that average. So the Discover's result was well within the range we consider safe and effective, and I thought the brakes did fine in my testing, but this bike's result was a little below average for the commuter e-bike category. Right now, that number sits at 22 feet and 3 inches. I narrowed things down even further to the city cruiser subcategory, which features light to midweight e-bikes with similar frame styles and riding positions. That average was 22 feet and 9 inches, so this bike was still a tad slower than average when compared to its peers, and there's not an obvious reason why its performance was a little worse. It is worth noting that both the brake system and the tires of this bike are unbranded, so that might have played a role. In my experience, the bike stayed nice and stable when braking, but I did notice that the tires would squeal and skate quite a bit when I clamped down hard. Nothing too out of the norm, and we don't think any changes are necessary, but it's probably worth testing out the brakes when you get the bike so you can get a feel for how it behaves. Bottom line, these brakes are safe and effective, and we're satisfied with the bike's overall performance. Next up is our speed test. I took the Discover One Plus out to the bike paths for this one, and my goal was to determine what its speed limits were in each of its pedal assist settings. I rode the bike with both a 20 mile per hour and a 28 mile per hour limit in each of its assist settings, and I also tested the throttle to see how quickly it accelerated up to 20 miles per hour. So let's go see how the tests went, and then we can go over the results back here. All right, we are here for a speed test on the Discover One Plus. So I'm going to start off with a Class 2 test. We will then do a Class 3 test, and then we'll check out the throttle. So starting off here, I'm pedaling with no assistance, going right around 9 miles per hour, just with light effort on the pedals, not trying to go crazy here. And I really just want to see what the preset speed limits are of this bike. So yeah, about 9 miles per hour there. Let's go up to PAS 1. Okay, so took a second for the motor to come on, and there's a very slight little hum there. I don't know if you can hear that, but you know, it's given us a little bit of a push right up to about 10 miles per hour, maybe up to 10.5-ish, but I think that might have just been the path. Yeah, we're holding pretty steady here at 10.1. All right, let's go up to PAS 2. All right. Feel like this is a good cruising speed. We're up to 12 miles per hour. I'm gonna shift up to, let's do 5th gear. Yeah, this feels nice. Like something for a Sunday morning cruise. Let's go up to PAS 3. Oh, a little bit of a nudge there. Up to 6th gear. And we're up to 15 miles per hour. Yeah, that feels nice too. Let's go up to PAS 4. This thing definitely gives you a little bit of a kick once you bump up to the next setting. I like that. I'm up in 7th gear now. We're going right around 17 miles per hour, 17.2. And then let's go up to PAS 5. All right, so that's max power with the Class 2 limit, which we just hit, 20 miles per hour. Yeah, okay, we'll call that the Class 2 test, and I'll see you back here for the Class 3. All right, so we are back to do a Class 3 test on the Discover One Plus. Wanted to just mention that in order to change your speed or, you know, class, all you have to really do is when the bike is off, hold the power and the plus buttons, and that will, after 20 seconds, bring up a screen that allows you to change your top speed. So now that we've done that, the bike is back on, and here we are in PAS 1. Let's get moving. All right, shift up to 5th gear here. So we're already going faster than we did in the Class 2 test in PAS1. We're going 14.5 on the nose here. So, seems like a good starting point. Let's go up to PAS2. All right, definitely a little bit of a kick. Moving up in power. We'll shift up to 6th gear. Get around this bend and then we'll see where things land, but seems like we're kind of right around 18 miles per hour, 17.9. All right, let's go up to PAS3. We'll shift up to 7th gear. So one of the things that this model has versus the original Discover is a larger chainring. So noticing that I'm, able to still pedal and stay engaged with the drivetrain. No ghost pedaling, which is great. So PAS3 is 22.4 miles per hour. We're definitely moving. And then PAS4, kick things up a little bit more. Get around the bend again. All right, got to catch back up a little, but I think we are almost there. We are up to 25.5-ish, kind of fluctuating a bit, but yeah, that seems about right. Let's go up in the last highest setting, PAS5, last and highest setting. All right, kind of holding pretty steady here. Not really getting anything else out of it. So it seems like we've kind of reached the peak power. Well, okay, I guess we did hit 26 and a little above 26.5. All right, we'll call it there and let's go check out the throttle. All right, and then finally, we'll check out the throttle to see how quickly it gets up to speed. So I am in PAS5. The throttle speed is connected to the pedal assist system, so it shares the same speed limits as the pedal test that we just saw. So now that I'm in PAS5, it will hit 20 miles per hour. Let's go ahead and, we're in Class 2 mode, by the way. But let's go ahead and start in 3, 2, 1, go. All right, nice gradual build in acceleration there, up to 14, 16, 18, and 20, and a little above, but then it looks like we're, settling back down. Okay, I'll see you back at the studio. So to run through those numbers again, I started off with no pedal assist at 9 miles per hour with light effort. In the Class 2 test, my speeds were 10.1 miles per hour in PAS1, 12.2 in PAS2, 15.2 in PAS3, 17.2 in PAS4, and 20 miles per hour in PAS5. In the Class 3 test, my speeds went up across the board, so I hit 14.5 in PAS1, 17.9 in PAS2, 22.4 in PAS3, 25.6 miles per hour in PAS4, and 26.4 in PAS5. When looking at the graphs of this data, we generally look for an angled line that shows consistent increases in speed. This sort of pattern indicates that the pedal assist system is well balanced with intuitive differences in power, so every time you go to the next highest setting, you get the extra boost you expect. For the most part, both sets of test results look pretty solid. The Class 2 test is basically spot on with what we look for, and the Class 3 data shows a similar pattern up through PAS4. In PAS5, I noticed that the bike seemed to be giving me all it had, and I was moving plenty fast, but it did struggle to get all the way up to the Class 3 limit. I do want to point out that you can adjust the maximum speed anywhere between 12 and 28 miles per hour, so if you're new to e-bikes and you want to get a feel for things, you could bring the top speed all the way down, but if you're running late for work on a Monday morning, you might bump it up all the way to the top. I mentioned earlier that this bike felt both peppy and approachable, and I hope that came through in the video clips. Its throttle acceleration was generally pretty gradual and easy to handle, but when I moved up through the assist levels in the pedal test, the motor gave me a fun little kick in the higher settings. Speaking of the throttle, I noticed that it would exceed 28 miles per hour when I had the bike set to the max speed of 28, and that technically means that it exceeds the legal throttle speed limits in most places. Velotric says you can just disconnect the throttle if you want it to meet legal requirements, but we encourage them to limit the throttle to 20 miles per hour when using the bike as a Class 3. One thing I really liked about this bike though is that the throttle speed can be controlled by the pedal assist system. So if you want to cruise with your throttle at 15 miles per hour, you could set it to PAS 3 in Class 2 mode, but if you want the full 20 miles per hour, you can jump up to PAS 5. In our third test, we found the Discover's minimum and maximum range by pedaling in PAS 5 and PAS 1 until the battery ran out of charge. With the highest amount of power, we pedaled for an hour and 43 minutes and got 31.3 miles. Our second test took 6 hours and 48 minutes with the lowest assist level, and that gave us 68.9 miles. Compared to other commuters we've tested, this bike was fairly average in its PAS 5 test, but its PAS 1 test was almost 15 miles better than average. The difference between this bike and its peers seemed to be speed. The Discover went 10.2 miles per hour on average, while the others went 12.2. So this helped this bike stretch out its battery charge and cover some extra ground in comparison. Speed aside, these are some pretty impressive results that mean the Discover is well suited to use as a daily commuter. It has enough gas in the proverbial tank to cover a long commute or quite a few leisure rides. And however rarely it might need charged, we were very happy to see a 3-amp charger included with the bike, so the battery can be filled up in about 5 hours. Next is our hill test, which we perform at an infamous hill called Hellhole Trail. We tested the Discover One Plus's throttle and pedal assist system in PAS 5 at this paved path that has a 12% grade over a third of a mile. I'm going to pass you over to our tester Justin for this next clip. He can share his thoughts as he climbs the hill both times.
All right, we're out on Hellhole in the Velotric Discover, their upgraded model, doing the throttle test. And this is kind of this cruiser, commuter. So I did not have super high expectations on the throttle side of things. Again, this is more of a relaxed city cruiser type bike. And so we'll see how it does. So far, about 7.4, 7.0. Let's see if we make it through this section. This is the section that always kills this style of bike. 5.1. Feels like it's just kind of grabbing that 5 miles an hour and just keeping it. Oh, of course, I say that and it goes down to 4.5. 4.4. Come on, baby. Oh, I think it. I don't want to jinx it. 4.1. Swaying a little bit, but not bad. Most of that's actually because I'm looking at the screen. So yeah, seemed to bottom at 4.1 through there. Let's see if we can get some speed up before this next steep section. Motor's been very quiet, but when you're going slower, that's kind of typical until you get, a little bit higher speed going and start moving that motor around. So I'll let you listen to this section. So yeah, this section's a little steeper. You saw it drop down to 3.9. Silent motor. We'll see what it does more on the pedal test. I'm starting to hear it now a little bit more as we get up to 10, 11 miles per hour. So unless something weird happens, we'll make it up Hellhole, which is kind of a checkbox A+, just for making it up. If it's a less power city, kind of cruiser style bike, it's nice to know that you can throttle up, but you're probably going to want to pedal just off these results. Obviously, we'll turn around and do the pedal test, and I'm expecting it'll do better. But yeah, just kind of cruising in on the finish right at 7 miles an hour. It's kind of slowing down even through this section here. So you can tell I have strained that motor a little bit, but it's going to finish. So it finished. We'll detect the tape, see how it does against the other similar style bikes. Okay, we're back out on the Velotric Discover, the pedal test. I'm in 5th gear, going 14 miles an hour to start. Like I need to downshift a little bit down to 4th. We'll see how this does. I made it up on the throttle, so I'm expecting a little better results here, which I'm seeing so far right about 10.3, 9.6 miles per hour, 9.3, 9.0-ish. So with this, I'm doing a little more than soft pedal, but I'm not doing what I normally have to do on like a super lightweight city urban bike. So I could probably be a little slower if I wanted to, but I try to keep my input consistent here. So yeah, I do have to put a little effort, but not too bad. I'll let you listen to this section. Yeah, kind of held right at 9.0 there. I downshifted to 2nd to make it a little bit easier to pedal. The motor sounded fairly decent here. Very quiet. Definitely on the quiet side of things, both from frequency and just overall noise. And so yeah, it's gonna make it up fairly comfortably. Again, not gonna be top of the record books, not expected on a cruiser bike. So we'll go check the tape and see how it did.
We were happy to see the bike make it to the top in both tests. Justin finished the throttle portion in 2 minutes and 19 seconds at an average of 7.8 miles per hour. His pedal test result was significantly faster. That one came in at 1 minute and 36 seconds at 11.3 miles per hour. Now, the pedal test definitely turned out to be much closer to average than the throttle test, but both results were below average when compared to similar bikes with 500-watt hub motors that we've tested. The throttle time was about 30 seconds slower than average, and based on my experience at our secondary test location, I think Justin was correct in saying that the motor got a little bit stressed by the extreme nature of Hellhole Trail. That secondary test location is called Pilot Hill, and it isn't quite as extreme as Hellhole, but it's still a pretty intimidating hill. I did my own throttle and pedal tests in both the Class 2 and Class 3 modes to see if there would be a difference, so that meant 4 trips up the hill in a row. My last test was the Class 3 pedal test, which should have been the fastest, but it ended up with the slowest time, and I noticed that the bike got pretty sluggish about halfway to the top. The bike was still able to make it, but I believe the motor went into a protective cool-down mode with lower power output, and I bet that was the same thing that happened to Justin at Hellhole. All of that aside, the Discover did prove that it can handle some difficult hills, and it'll likely give you the option to throttle or pedal over them. If you're pedaling, you may need to put in a moderate level of effort, but overall the task of climbing hills should be pretty easy in most situations. Before we wrap things up, we have one last thing to talk about, and that's ride quality, or how the Discover One Plus feels to ride. Let's hit the bike paths one more time and talk about the basics, but then I'll add a few more thoughts once we get back here to the studio. All right, let's talk about ride quality here on the Discover One. So as we've talked about, this is a city cruiser style commuter. It's got a very nice upright riding position, very comfortable and relaxed. As far as what I'm feeling, I've got good leg extension. I've got the adjustable stem set fairly vertically, so I'm not leaning over. Got my arms kind of down and outstretched in front of me, but not like too much so. Like, it's very comfortable. And I mean, generally pleasant all around, gotta say. So there is just a single frame size for this bike, but it is made for riders from 5'1" up to 6'4", and there's quite a bit of adjustability. You get 8 inches or so of adjustment in your saddle height, and then there's a telescoping stem, like I said, so you can change your handlebar height and your reach. That was a good time to talk about the suspension. Just went over a little bump. So there's a suspension fork up front with 80 millimeters of travel to smooth out, bumpy pavement like these little things, speed bumps, that sort of thing. And then we are rolling on some 26-inch by 2.5-inch street tires. Good traction on paved surfaces. pretty good stability with that width, and they're big enough that you could air them down a little bit and add yourself a little bit of extra cushion to the ride. And finally, we'll talk about the motor. This is a proprietary motor that is designed by Velotric. It is a 500 watt motor with a cadence sensor, and I will demonstrate the engagement of that here. We'll bump up to, well, I'm in class 3 mode, so I guess right now we'll bump up to PAS 3, and I'm just gonna kind of slow down for a sec, spin the pedals here, and show you how quickly that engages. So let's do that now. Okay, so that was about a quarter to a half turn of the cranks, I'd say. Pretty quick, and definitely a good amount of power, building up pretty quickly. So yeah, all in all, really like this bike. It's a lot of fun, very comfortable to ride, and also pretty easy to use. So let's bounce back to the studio and we'll wrap things up. Overall, I don't have a whole lot to add. I've already talked quite a bit about the riding position and the bike's comfort factor. In terms of fit, I asked our tallest and shortest testers to ride the Discover, since they're basically on the extreme ends of the bike's height range. Sydney is 5'1" and Matthew is 6'5", but both of them had great first impressions and found this bike extremely comfortable and enjoyable to ride. And that's been the general consensus with everyone here who's ridden this bike. It's easy to ride, it's cushy, it handles well, and it's pretty easy to operate. The only critique I really have in this section is about the bike's user interface. There's nothing wrong with this one. It's fairly basic, but it's easy to use and read. But many of Velotric's newest models, and even one of the other newly refreshed Plus models, includes a color display with 3 riding modes, each with different power levels. I think that would have been nice to see here as well, as this bike doesn't differ much from the original Discover 1, so it would have made for a more obvious upgrade. Otherwise, I think there's a lot to love about this bike, and I still think it provides really great value. We tested the original version of the Discover 1 years ago when it was originally released, and we liked it a lot, but it was great to have a refresher with the new Plus model here. My takeaway is that this is a highly capable bike that really nails just about everything. It has great looks, it's extremely comfortable to ride, it's powerful enough to feel fun and climb hills without feeling like it's gonna get away from you, and it's got everything you need on a daily use e-bike, whether that means it's your ride to work and back, or the bike you take out for some evening exercise and fresh air. It's worth pointing out that the Discover 1 Plus is relatively simple, which makes it both affordable and easy to use, but if you're looking for something with more bells and whistles, you might want to consider the Discover 2. But otherwise, the bike did a solid job in our testing, and if you're considering it as an option, I don't think you'll be disappointed. If you want to take a closer look at the bike, please check out the 2 links in the video description. One will take you over to our written review at electricbikereport.com, where you can see other reviews, news, and educational content. The other link goes to Velotric's website, where you can see both Discover models and check current pricing. And again, please use that link if or when you make a purchase. Please also be sure to like and subscribe if you found this review helpful, and feel free to reach out with any questions or thoughts in the comments section. But thanks for taking a ride with me today. Again, I'm John with Electric Bike Report, and this is the Velotric Discover 1 Plus.